Hi guys, it's Michael Levinson, and I'm going to be doing the live today, NLF Live. We're going to talk about DUI enhancements to DUI charges. What's an enhancement? Well, an enhancement is something that they add to a charge. It's not a charge all by itself necessarily, but it's something they add to a charge. And it doesn't always, but it can make the punishment worse. So in DUI cases, there are a number of them. Probably the most prominent one, the one that gets charged the most often, and the one that winds up being the biggest problem for people most of the time, is what's called a refusal. When you sign up to get your driver's license, you sign a document that says that you agree that if you are stopped and arrested for driving under the influence, you agree that you will give a sample of your breath, you'll give a breath test, or you will give a blood test to determine how much alcohol is in your system. And if you refuse, if you say, no, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to do that, then you can automatically be stripped of your driver's license for at least 1 year. Because what the rule is that you've basically already agreed to give them the test. That's implied that you've consented to it, implied consent. And if you refuse, that means you've also agreed that they can take your license away. And obviously, it's an acknowledgement on the part of the system that it's important to that DUI, driving under the influence, is a societal issue. And the way to solve it, or one of the ways to solve it, is to make sure that if people get arrested for this, they have to submit to testing. Otherwise, how can we really prove whether they really did this or not? And if you refuse, you'll lose your license, but they can also add an enhancement to the charges they file against you. So they can say, oh my goodness, you were driving under the influence, but we're also going to add this thing that says that you refused the test. And that can add up to at least 2 days of jail, and it just looks worse on your record, and it's a problem. Now, the other thing is that even if you refuse, they can still hold you down and they can take your blood away, okay? How can that be? Well, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that they can get a search warrant from a judge that says, based on the idea that you were drinking too much and you were driving, and they caught you, and that you are supposed to submit to a test, and the judge will sign a search warrant, and then they can hold you down and stick that needle in your arm anyway. So refusing is not good all the way around, because they're going to get the test anyway, probably. It's going to enhance the charges, and you're going to lose your license. There's another enhancement, an added sort of charge, not a formal charge by itself. The thing about enhancements you got to keep in mind is they only matter if you're actually guilty of the DUI itself. So, if you don't get convicted of the DUI, then the enhancements don't come into play. They're only punishments that get added to the basic punishment, and that you only get those if you get convicted. So anyway, the next one is what's called an excessive blood alcohol concentration enhancement. That can also get you a couple days in jail. It used to be you had to be north of 0.20. Now it's just 0.15. They basically made the standard lower so that it's easier for them basically to punish people for this. And it's based on their belief that 0.15 is really high, and it's so high that you're more dangerous than if you're at a 0.14, and so they're going to punish you worse. Whether that's true or not, whether you really deserve the punishment, whether all, those are all other questions, but that's an enhancement, okay? There's an enhancement for speeding. If you're going over 100 miles an hour or more than 35 miles over the speed limit, you can get charged with a special enhancement that's very serious. You can be required to go to jail for that. You can also lose your license for a year for doing that. It's not done very often. Most people that are driving under the influence tend to drive too slow because they can't seem to get their eye on the road, and they're not really sure where they're going. So obviously, if you're going too fast and they think you're intoxicated, that's a dangerous situation. That's not something that's going to go without, some sort of strong response from the courts, and that's what the enhancement is. There's also, God forbid, you have an accident. There are enhancements for what's called great bodily injury. So if you have an accident, that's one thing. That's a potential. If you have an accident and someone gets injured, that's one thing. But if you have somebody gets hurt real bad, basically called great bodily injury, if they get bones broken or if they get any number of other problems that can come up, then you are potentially going to get punished for what's called great bodily injury, and that's real serious. That's kind of, you don't want that, and you want to make sure that you don't do that, but also that can add years to your punishment and to your sentence. So you want to avoid that by all costs. Most people that are, the average people that are out there driving, even if they maybe have had too much to drink, I think most people would, really don't want to have accidents. They really would feel terrible if they did. They certainly would feel terrible if someone was hurt. If you're a minor, if you're underage, you can get specially punished for driving under the influence. First off, if you're a minor, you're not supposed to be drinking at all. Second, if you're a minor, the blood alcohol concentration proof level is lower for you. And I believe it's 0.05. And so you can get enhanced if you're underage and if you have a blood alcohol over a certain level. This is not a way to start your career in life, which is, driving intoxicated when you're underage. And underage in California is under 21. So, all you high schoolers and college kids out there, you got to keep in mind that, everybody understands you're going to have some fun in school, but you got to be real careful about driving when you do that. Where I went to college, everybody walked around, so it really didn't matter how much you drank. It was 35 degrees below zero, so we walked home in some real cold weather. But when you're 21, 20 years old, what do you care? But very few people drove anywhere, because why would you drive? You're on campus. You don't need a car. You don't want a car. You certainly don't want to run the risk of driving when you've been out doing things that, put you in a condition where you shouldn't be driving. So hopefully I've offered some interesting information about DUI enhancements. Probably the ultimate lesson of enhancements is that it's one thing to get arrested for a DUI. That's kind of bad enough. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying it's a tricky enough situation as it is, and you start adding things to it, and it just sort of starts to get a little worse. And, what maybe seemed like an innocent thing to do on one occasion turns out to be a problem that you never really bargained for, and who wants that? Life presents us all with enough challenges as it is. Why add things like enhancements to DUIs in your lifetime? So I hope I've been helpful, and please let me know if there's anything else I can do. You can always call us at the Nieves Law Firm. Look us up at the Nieves Law Firm, and we're here to help you with any issues you may have. Thank you.